Think about this. Why would a guy who runs a YouTube channel that talks about survival all the time say survival is not good? Let me answer that question. What's up, everyone? Tim here from Everyday Tactical Vids. Let's talk about the topic of survival. If you're a YouTube person and you like watching videos about survival, survival skills, survival gear, I'm right there with you. But I want you to think about something with me, right? I'm going to make a variety of survival videos in the months and years to come, talking about specific skills, tactics, gear, things that you and I can put into play so that we have a greater likelihood of survival if we get into that type of scenario. At the end of this video, I'm going to ask you a specific question about survival, and I want to hear your thoughts and feedback in the comment section, both so I can read them and so other Everyday Tactical Vids community members can read and we can learn from one another. Let me list out the 3 scenarios I think about when I think about being in a survival situation, all right? Scenario number 1 is me going out to the woods with limited gear, saying to my wife, hey, I'll be back tomorrow evening. I'm gonna be gone for 24 hours, working on my survival skills, pushing myself to my limits. That's a survival scenario. In general, it's a bit more safe. It's a controlled scenario. And so I would say that's a way to improve and test your skills so that you can say, here's where I'm weak, here's where I'm strong. And yeah, I'm gonna get better at this. It's good for our souls. It's good for our minds to challenge ourselves a little bit when you do it properly. So that's a survival scenario that has a lot of good on the other side. Another survival scenario, number 2, is you're well prepared and then something just goes completely sideways. I'll give you an example. I hiked the Presidential Range in the White Mountains probably 10, 15 years ago with 2 other friends. When we reached Mount Washington, which at that point had the fastest wind speed ever clocked in the world, there was a weather alert. It said a weather event is going to hit the Presidential Range. And so that was a scenario where we had planned as best as we could. We had our gear, everything for this hike, but we couldn't control the weather. And so we might have, if the weather went really downhill, we might have ended up in a survival scenario. So this is the second one. The first one is like survival training. The second one is you're prepared and you get in a scenario where you're well prepared, but something just goes sideways. You get injured, you couldn't control that, whatever it is, and now you're in a survival scenario. Well, it's good to have the survival skills that you know, the gear that you have to help you in that scenario. Here's the third scenario. You are venturing into a place that you shouldn't be. You are pushing yourself well beyond your limits. You don't have the skill set. You haven't planned well, and then you end up in a survival situation. So if you think about those 3 scenarios, training, situation you can't control, but you're prepared, and then situation that you might be able to avoid, but you just overestimated yourself. Of those last two situations, both of those are not great situations to be in. When I go out and do survival training, I'm feeling pretty happy because I get to be in the woods, I get to test myself, challenge myself, but it's not life or death. If we had gone out into that weather event and it got really bad, that could have been a life or death scenario. So I don't want to be in that survival situation. If I go out unprepared, overestimating my skill set, end up in a survival scenario, I don't want to be in that situation. So just think about it with me. Let's not create in our heads this kind of idealistic world of, oh, survival skills or survival, it's awesome. In most cases, you're in a bad situation and you're just trying to stay alive. With that said, training and preparing ahead of time, if you do end up in one of those other situations, gives you a greater chance to affect self-rescue, whether you get out or someone comes in to help you. I saw this YouTube channel. I'm not going to name names because I don't want to point fingers and be nasty, but I saw this YouTube channel that showed like survival gear. And some of it, I was like, man, I would rather take a Swiss Army knife this big rather than that big survival tool you just showed me, because this one is like, it's more kitschy than anything. It's more like flashy and probably not well made. Good chance it's going to break on you in the middle of the woods, as opposed to give me that solid Victorinox knife or a Leatherman multi-tool. I'm going to go with that. And it just struck me that it could be easy for us to get into that place thinking about survival, being like, I love YouTube survival stuff. And I go, yeah, it's all fun and games. It's fun and challenging to challenge ourselves. If you're in a survival situation, most people who survive it don't come out on the other side and go, that was awesome. They go, I'm really glad I had the skill set. I'm really glad that I'm alive, but that was a really scary situation. So let me lay this before you, just as something to think about. I love survival skills. I love survival gear. I think it's awesome. But when you think about it, do you feel like you have a realistic view of it, or do you have an idealistic view of it? I remember probably 8 or 9 years ago watching a video from NutnFancy, and he was talking about what he called WROL, without rule of law. And he pointed out to people, You might say, man, I'm all prepped up. I got my gear, I got my kits, I got everything. I'm ready for that scenario. But he said, trust me, you don't ever want a situation where there's no rule of law. So it can be really easy for us to idealize and be like, oh man, I could survive, I could do well. But I'm right with him. There's no situation I want no rule of law. I want everything to go well and smoothly. I don't want chaos to be something that I'm churning up, creating in my own life, or that, you know, the government or people are creating. Listen, I don't want to get into a political discussion here. I just want to point out that let's not idealize apocalyptic end of the world survival scenarios. Those things are really scary and really dangerous and really hard for us to make it through. So let's be thankful that we have a chance when we're in a safer time and place to practice those survival skills, whether it's for the desert, it's for the woods, it's for winter, it's for summer. Let's get good at those survival skills. So in the future, if we do happen to find ourselves falling into a scenario, whether it was in our control or not, there's a better chance for us to effect self-rescue. So let me hear your thoughts and your feedback in the comments. I want to hear from you. How do you view survival? Like when you really kind of examine your thoughts on it, do you go, yeah, I got to come back to reality that maybe I'm over-idealizing? Do you know, I want to learn survival skills, but I know a survival situation would be really bad? Let's just get that discussion going in the comment section. I'd love to hear from you guys. Thanks for watching the videos. Thanks for the comments as we engage as the Everyday Tactical Vids community. Take care.